All right, folks, welcome into this edition of Wave Extra. Joining myself this evening is our meteorologist, Carson Meredith.
Hello.
So, for the first time, Carson, getting to hang out, just an opportunity to go over the stuff, we know you at home are going to want to check in on, find interesting, the stuff to help you prepare as we're wrapping up the evening, heading into the weekend, of course. So, in-depth coverage. We'll look ahead to some of my conversation with Alena earlier today. If you were following the push alerts, Carson, that was just a big update in the Steven Lawson trial post that conviction. But not to bury the lead, as Carson is coming in to join us for a little bit today. So to set all this up, Carson, that heading into most of the week, this is the time where I'm just like, this is what I want to do, is loosen the tie, because given the mugginess and the temperatures as we're feeling that summer heat outside, that is my natural instinct. I just know, at least looking ahead for the next couple of days, if I'm going to do this, that's fine. But
It is.
keeping the rain jacket and or umbrella handy, the Wave Weather Now app, the Wave Weather app, also a great tool. But in essence, to say, time to just watch out for the rain that's coming our way.
Yeah, and this is nothing out of the ordinary for June. I mean, it's warm, it's soupy, and that eventually means that we're going to have some thunderstorm chances to talk about. And at least for tomorrow and Saturday afternoons, we're going to be looking at that risk for a few strong to severe storms. Now, let's start off with what's happening tonight. Some of you in southern Indiana especially have seen several thunderstorms throughout the afternoon. There was a pretty good downpour that went through Jennings County, Jefferson County, Indiana. But here at 8:09, things are fairly quiet. We do have one little shower just to the northeast of North Vernon, still in Jennings County, but that's all we're seeing, at least in our backyard for the time being. And I expect the trend to continue to be drier as we go through the next few hours. The one thing we may have to watch is this broken band of downpours right along Interstate 69 out near Evansville, stretching up towards Bloomington as well. None of these downpours are severe whatsoever, but if they hold on long enough, they could sneak into, let's say, Lawrence County, Indiana, Bedford, maybe as far east as Paoli, English, Marengo, Tell City, Jasper. So we'll keep an eye on that for the next few hours. The main issue, if these downpours do move into our area, would be heavy rain and lightning. There's no severe weather risk as we go through the next few hours, but it's something that we will keep an eye on through about 11 o'clock or so tonight. Otherwise, we're looking pretty quiet for the rest of the night tonight. Get you outside to E-Town. Not too bad out there. A lot of cloud cover. They're called overshooting tops, Jose. It's basically clouds that shoot away from any thunderstorms that have developed further to the west. That's what we're seeing tonight in E-Town and across a good chunk of wave country. 82 is our temperature here in Louisville. You look at the dew point, we're in the mid-60s. That is air you can wear. It is soupy. It is muggy. It's nasty outside. And that trend's going to hold through the weekend, even when we're not seeing storms. Now, for tonight, as we mentioned, those downpours will continue to fade, but it's still going to stay warm. It's still going to be muggy. 69 our forecast low tonight. And if you live in southern Indiana and you saw those downpours earlier today, there could be some patchy fog that develops by sunrise tomorrow morning. I don't think it's a major widespread issue, but don't be surprised if you see at least some patchy fog early tomorrow morning. Now, let's jump into our alert day for Friday. So we're going to do this in two parts here, Friday and then Saturday, and then we'll show you the 10-day. For tomorrow in particular, the window for the alert day is pretty narrow. It's only 3 to 7 p.m. It's only 4 hours. The problem is that's when a lot of you are getting off work. That's when a lot of you are heading to dinner. And that's when a lot of you are also heading to Jim Patterson Stadium for game one of the U of L Super Regionals against Miami. I do not believe at this point we are talking about a washout for the Cards game tomorrow afternoon, but there will be a cluster of strong to severe storms that develops off to our west tonight and will arrive in our area tomorrow afternoon between 3 and 7 p.m. The threats we're watching, similar to today with heavy rain and lightning, but the difference tomorrow is we're going to have some wind energy above our heads in the atmosphere. So we're going to have that risk for damaging wind gust in addition to heavy rain and in addition to lightning. And obviously that could certainly cause issues for any outdoor events, not just the U of L game, but whatever outdoor plans you might have tomorrow afternoon and evening. You notice the level 2 slight risk in yellow. That covers a good chunk of wave country, basically from, let's say, I-64 all the way down into our Kentucky county. So basically, if you're in Kentucky, you're in the slight risk. Further north up towards Bedford, Seymour, North Vernon, Madison, Scottsburg, Salem, it's a marginal risk. It's a level 1. So the higher risk tomorrow, we're all going to see storms, but the higher severe weather risk is along I-64, including Louisville, point south across the rest of central Kentucky. So here we go now with Futurecast. You notice we're quiet overnight tonight. We're quiet Friday morning. Very warm, very muggy tomorrow morning. Some patchy fog, but we're dry. As we go into the afternoon, here comes that cluster of storms. So when you look at the timing of this particular model, 5 p.m., the storms are knocking on the door of the metro. If that timing holds, we can start the baseball game on time at 3 o'clock, but we may go into a delay. Now, I will say I'm fairly confident we're going to have a delay at some point in that game tomorrow afternoon. How long that delay is, it depends on how fast these storms can get out of here as we go through tomorrow afternoon. But I would prepare now, if you're heading to the game, for delays, ponchos for sure, have the Wave Weather app handy too, so you can get those lightning alerts, which can detect any lightning near you. Make sure the app is set to follow your location as well. And if there are any severe thunderstorm warnings, you'll get those too as soon as they are issued tomorrow afternoon. So for the time being, I think we start the game on time. Then we go into a delay around 4 or 5 o'clock. But this is not an all-day, all-night stormy setup. We get towards 7, 8, 9 o'clock. I think the severe threat is done, area-wide, including Louisville. And all we're left with is maybe just a few light showers. That's it. So I don't think it's a full washout for the Cards game tomorrow, but there will likely be some delays. 60% chance right in the middle of the game, like 3rd, 4th, 5th inning, around 5 p.m. And then we see those storm chances go down through the rest of the evening. That's for tomorrow. Now, let's jump to Saturday, and then I'll show you the 10-day earliest alert. It's a 40% chance. Forgive me, the bars are a little off kilter there, but it's a 40% chance for those scattered storms in the similar time frame for Saturday, 4 to 8 p.m. Now, the storm coverage on Saturday is not as high. So we're not thinking clusters of severe storms, but there's still going to be enough wind energy to where if any scattered storms develop, they could have some gusty winds in addition to heavy rain and lightning. So that's why we have the alert day flag up for Saturday as well. But you notice that severe risk is slightly lower. Instead of a level 2 risk like we have tomorrow, it's a level 1 risk as we get towards Saturday afternoon between, let's say, 4 and 8 o'clock. So we're more confident in severe weather tomorrow as opposed to Saturday, but with a lot of you heading out and about on Saturday, it's the first full weekend of June. Maybe you want to go by the pool, go by the lake. We want to give you that earliest alert, that first heads up. There could be additional strong storms that we have to dodge as we head into Saturday as well. And we'll be here tomorrow, and we'll be here all weekend watching both of those alert days for you. I'll look at the 10-day earliest alert before we wrap up the weather portion of Wave Extra tonight. Sunday looks mostly dry at this point, but that frontal boundary will be pushing to the south. So we could have additional pop-up storms during the day on Sunday, likely not severe. And a lot of you stay dry Sunday. Another system moves in Monday with more storms, some of which could be strong. No alert day for Monday for now, but we'll keep an eye on it. But once that front moves through Monday, we dry things out. It gets less humid, and it gets a little cooler. Cool for June standards, at least, with those highs in the upper 70s to near 80 for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then we start to get into a stormy pattern again as we head into Father's Day weekend. So that's just kind of a quick synopsis, Jose, of where we are tonight. Again, this is not going to be a huge severe weather issue at all. But that cluster of storms, it's going to have some damaging wind gusts with it. We'll likely be tracking severe thunderstorm warnings tomorrow afternoon. And with that in mind, with the U of L game going on, and just a Friday evening in general, we wanted to give you guys that first heads up that we could have a little rocky weather for a few hours tomorrow afternoon.
No sense in not being prepared. And it's almost, Carson, like you were thinking in the situation for some people like Nancy, who commented to us on Facebook as you were breaking everything down to the forecast. So she was thinking for her Saturday plans. She says she's heading south to Tennessee, and she was going to ask you what the best time to miss the rain of the storms. You broke down what seems, the highest percent chance for Saturday's rain, later into the evening. I guess we have some highs from Nathan and Justin. And what's interesting to think about sometimes, Carson, is, giving folks as much of the information to be prepared in a baseball game. You're outdoors, you're they're vulnerable to the elements. And given, it seems like the excitement's there when we were discussing finding out the game sold out pretty early. So you're talking quite a packed Jim Patterson Stadium. The stadium athletic program has its protocols for how to keep folks safe when the time comes. It's just when you're talking about what could be, a packed stadium when those thunderstorms hit, and then just trying to get everybody back under a roof as safely as possible.
And the NCAA has very, very strict protocols when it comes to lightning. I believe it's within 8 miles of the given stadium. So in tomorrow's case, Jim Patterson. If there's lightning within 8 miles of Jim Patterson, they shut it down. And we have to wait until at least 30 minutes after the last lightning strike. So that's why I'm saying it could be a lengthy delay tomorrow, but I don't think it's a situation where we have to stop where we are and pick up early Saturday morning or anything like that. There will be a delay in all likelihood, but hopefully we can get things back going later in the evening.
That just means warming up those bullpen arms at some point, wherever the action falls in the middle of the innings, as it is for a high stakes game like this. But
there's a good chance it becomes a bullpen game tomorrow afternoon, especially if we have a lengthy delay like that.
That's right. Well, thank you for the breakdown, Carson. Appreciate that. Wave weather team, the storm tracking team on top of it all. Again, sending those push alerts to your phone, download the app if you haven't already, a great tool to have. And Carson and the team will be walking us through it all as we head wrapping up tonight, going into Friday, Saturday. First, can you believe it's the first full weekend of June?
No.
I don't believe
it's wild. It all runs together for the weather team at this point because it has been such a crazy spring.
Yeah.
But, this is more manageable compared to what we had back in the spring weather-wise, but summer means warm weather, it means muggy weather, and it means afternoon storms too.
Understatement to say the least. Appreciate Carson making time for us. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this segment of Wave Extra tonight, joined by our reporter extraordinaire, Alena Noakes. Alena, someone who wears many hats. Last week, if you followed along with all of the happenings inside the courtroom down in Bowling Green, Alena, obviously what we were all waiting for was the ultimate result, what the jury was going to decide is when it came to Steven Lawson and the charges filed against him. Again, all tied into the context of what happened to Crystal Rogers. The charges that the jury ultimately agreed to convict him of, Alena, again, were tampering with evidence and conspiracy to commit murder. So obviously that sent its own degree of shockwave around the community, perhaps not a surprise for some in what evidence was presented. But the reason we brought you in today, of course, the update that he and his attorneys are filing for a brand new trial, making their arguments. So walk us through everything that you've been digging into today and sort of what we can see play out from here.
Yeah, I want to first say that this is not unexpected. We totally expected them to file an appeal. They said that they would do that at the end of trial when they got a verdict and they got a sentence. So this is not unexpected. And in this case, we did talk to Leland Holbert, who is our legal analyst as well. And he kind of walked us through the points that the defense makes in this case. And basically, he said it's not surprising some of the points they make, and that they're kind of throwing everything they can at it right now, which is something you're going to do in an appeal. Better to say something now than to not say it, and then it become a point you want to bring up later. So they kind of did that in this case. We highlighted 3 big points that came from the appeal today. They're requesting a new trial and for the verdict to be thrown out. And they give a ton of reasons. And the main 3 that I want to focus on is first that testimony from the witness, Elizabeth Chesser. Now, if you'll recall, she had a baby with Joseph Lawson, and she also had her mom had dated Steve Lawson a couple of years after Roger's disappearance. Her testimony, really a big kind of point for the defense. They recalled her, or they wanted to recall her as a witness potentially. They ended up not doing that, but they did retain her. And it's because of some of the things she said, namely the one part of her testimony saying that Steve told her that he wanted to leave his prior wife, Tammy, because she knew he had committed murder. Obviously something you can't take back once you say it, and it stuck with this jury, I believe. They called her statements inflammatory. And then one point we kind of addressed in our coverage when we were at trial is also that during a break, basically took a recess in the middle of her testimony, right after she made that statement about saying that, his wife knew he had committed murder. In that break, she actually talked to Sherry Ballard in a courthouse restroom, which came as a surprise for a lot of people, and especially for the defense when they heard that. They were not expecting that to be something that she said. Usually in these cases, witnesses are sequestered, and that would not have happened. They are not supposed to have an interaction with the public. So at the time, I actually kind of expected that to be more of an issue for the defense. They did take a problem with it during trial, but it's clearly become a big part here as well. So they say that, that should have had an impact and should have an impact on their appeal here. The other big case that they point out, or other big thing I should say that they point out, is that the jury didn't take enough time to consider this case. We all said this during trial, that it happened so quickly that it was only a week, and we definitely expected it to be more. The judge being surprised by the pace of it as well during trial. Every day we were kind of like, oh, we're done for today. We expected more. So it ended in a week or less than that, 4 days. And the defense says that the jury didn't have enough time, that they were rushed from the get-go to end it that week. And then 3 hours was simply too short of a period of time to end it, to reach a verdict. Now, I will say I've been to plenty of trials, covered plenty of trials, and I have seen verdicts on murder cases in less time than 3 hours. So, whether that has any impact on the appeal, Leland Holbert says it just depends on it. Typically, timing wouldn't, but it depends on whether all these other things play to this bigger impact in front of a judge. So we're going to have to see how this plays out, but those are kind of the big points we got from today.
Not to mention some other things, and I think you might have mentioned it in the reporting you've been building up through the day, Alena, but I know the discussion of the hairs came up even before this trial started. Right. When it came to filing that motion, and remind me if it was with this particular set of counsel for Steven Lawson that they were the ones to have filed that motion to go through and try to test those hairs. They're making the argument, look into other suspects. Like, why are you just seeming to pin it on our client? And walk me through if that was at all part of the motion that they filed today to say why wasn't there an effort to at least rule out a possibility, or I don't know, the the inevitability that it was or wasn't our client.
So yeah, that absolutely was a component to the motion they made today. In fact, it was the second one, talking about the second point they make, talking about the fact that that presented an unfair circumstance for their client, and that he was not allowed to test this evidence, these 2 hairs found in Crystal's car that were untested for the duration, the 10 years nearly of this case being open. That was something they tried to debate during the witness testimony they called up, the expert witness they called up. I don't really feel like it played a part necessarily in jury's considerations of the impact of that evidence, because the witness said he couldn't tell if there was any evidentiary value. He wasn't asked to tell that, and he wouldn't make an opinion on that. So whether or not his testimony played any part in what the jury had to say, I don't know. But it was the prosecution at first who made a motion to test the hairs, then kind of withdrew that. And then the defense went ahead and goes, yeah, let's test it. And then the prosecution said, this is a delay tactic. The judge said, no, we're moving forward with trial. And so this is kind of where we are today. So fully expected the hairs, once again, like it was in trial, to become an issue.
A contentious issue, perhaps.
Yes. So, obviously the prosecution and defense both making their points on this. The defense saying it could be someone else that we didn't test. Why would you not test all the evidence? The prosecution saying he already admitted to being in the car in some capacity.
Circumstances already setting you up in that particular bit of testimony, right?
Right.
One thing, Alena, I obviously, we both benefited so much from, as we were all, you of course, but in getting all of our timelines together and getting that legal analysis from a practicing attorney like Leland. So obviously, we have had that insight through that entire week. We had that quick exchange while you were there, kind of getting the finer points as we heard the verdict from in the courtroom on last Friday, I believe. Talk to me about, perhaps in your getting information today, what were sort of the things that, of course, that interested you, but also interested someone like a Leland, who is a practicing attorney, and he's able to look at the different perspectives, having that professional experience of like, I wonder how the machinations of this appeal might actually play out.
Well, like I said, I think he saw the motion and several of the points that were made in it as this is the defense trying to really do it whatever they can for their client, and it makes sense. I mean, when you're trying to appeal, you're going to bring up every circumstance. I think he said that the weakest point seemed to be the jury reaching a verdict in the amount of time that they did, because it's not unusual. Every jury is different in how they reach a verdict, and it doesn't mean that they were rushed by any party in that. So that's kind of one of the points he found to be the weakest. Several points like the family and supporters of Crystal Rogers wearing pink. A judge makes an order, you cannot wear anything overt that would signal to the jury who the people in the courtroom are there for. It can create an emotional response. It can make them vote one way or the other sometimes. So them all wearing pink was an issue for the defense. They said that it violated the court's order to not do that, to not wear something that would convince a jury one way or the other. That'll be up to of course, a judge to decide whether or not wearing pink has that kind of impact on a jury. So that was one big point that we kind of fleshed out today as, does it really matter? It just depends. We have to see,
Sure.
And then Elizabeth Chesser, that I think was the biggest one for a lot of people. And we, like I said, we expected that to be the case, for her testimony to become something like it was during trial, as contentious. And here's actually what he had to say about that.
Anyone just hearing, including an appeals court, hearing that a witness was talked to sounds terrible. But was it after her testimony? Did it actually influence her testimony? Was it just sympathetic words, or did it actually mean something? So raising it is very common and almost predicted. But will it actually go anywhere to overturn a verdict? That's another story.
Yeah. So, is something like that going to have any kind of impact? Her having a conversation with Sherry Ballard, it all depends on whether or not, the judge is reviewing these transcripts, reviewing how testimony goes, what she says. Does what she say after she takes the stand after having that conversation with Sherry Ballard, have any sort of impact on what she says next and potentially on what the jury then takes away from it.
Mhm.
That's going to be up to what she actually said.
And as you're going to follow all of this, the time necessarily won't be on Joseph Lawson or Brooks Houck's side, in the fact that the dates scheduled for their respective trials are still going to come up. Not that this would preclude that all from starting. It's just it takes me back to a conversation I had with Leland. Alena, I don't know if you heard that, where the possibility, slim as it could likely be, that Steven Lawson would dare testify in those respective trials. But his defense counsel now going to approach with, okay, we've got our appeal going. All this to say, an appeal process likely will take longer than what played out for his respective trial in the matter of those 3 to 4 days. An appeal process, they're going to take their time to discern what actually is worth considering or not, if it has merit, right?
Yeah. I mean, appeals process can reach many levels. And so, it can go through several courts. So it's all going to depend upon how long that process takes. It's rare that an appeal is quick. It usually takes a long time. You've got judges, especially once it goes past, Judge Charles Sims, who's the trial judge in this case. If he denies it and they appeal further up, it's going to be a longer period of time. These judges have all these appeals in their docket that they already have to take up. So, obviously, this is one appeal. Who knows what's going to play out in the next couple of weeks?
Right.
That's yet to be seen. We have the Brooks Houck and Joseph Lawson trial that's happening starting on June 24th. We do expect that to take longer than Steven Lawson's trial. And they are facing, in this case, Joseph Lawson is facing the same charges as his dad, which is conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence. And Brooks Houck is facing complicity to commit murder and tampering with evidence. A little bit of a difference there, a little bit more weight to Brooks Houck's charges. It's going to be interesting. I think we're all curious as to see how they're going to talk about these two, considering that they are going to be tried together, especially when you're dealing with two different charges. How do you play that as a prosecution? It's going to be interesting to see how they present their case. It would have been more interesting if all three were tried together.
I wonder how you would thread the needle if,
Yeah.
not only if you're the prosecution, defense counsel, stop me if my misunderstanding is, for different charges, you would want different co-counsel, like they're competing interests, in the sense that, what one defendant wants is for his own defense counsel to defend him as vigorously as possible without testimony from the other men necessarily compromising their statements as true or any of the evidence otherwise. So I think you bring up a very interesting point too, in how, who's going to represent Mr. Lawson and Mr. Houck respectively, and the prosecution then trying to tell the jury about how everything meshes together in the evidence that they're going to try to present.
Right. It's just going to be interesting to see how they present it and the order they choose to do that, and whether that has any impacts on how the jury kind of puts the pieces together. Now, the jury is allowed to take notes. They can't talk about the notes they take until deliberations. They are allowed to take those. So, and we saw a lot of that happening in Steve Lawson's trial. So it kind of just depends on, how they process the information that they're given. I mean, the whole thing about the defense attorneys and trying that, wanting to keep their interest where their interests are at, with the clients that they have, that was obviously a role in Steve Lawson being tried separately, mainly because he had statements that were going to incriminate his co-defendants, and legally you can't be tried together. So that was something they made a decision on, split the trials, and here we are with one done and two more to go.
And with an appeal now pending to see if the judge is going to humor and at least, and is the request in the language in that Alena saying, throw out this conviction, but then to say I'm entitled to a new trial at all, or just to dismiss the charges outright, or the conviction outright?
It's kind of both. I have the motion right here. It's, they ask for the court to grant him a new trial, or in the alternative, to grant him a judgment of acquittal, notwithstanding the verdict. The grounds for this motion are set forth below, and that's when they give all their reasons.
Okay.
So they want a new trial
or perhaps the big kahuna would be an acquittal, complete acquittal.
Completely, yeah. They're asking for throw it out if you can. If not, we want a new trial. So.
All right. We'll have to see how, the machinations, the twists and turns of this are only going to get more interesting, even more so when I know you'll be down in Bowling Green when the time comes for Joseph Lawson and Brooks Houck's respective trials. So keep us afloat on everything going on there, please, Alena.
Yes, we will be back down there for at least probably a couple of weeks starting on June 24th.
That's the preparation that goes into it all. So thanks again to our Wave News reporter, Alena Noakes. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. All right, everyone. Thanks again for sticking around for this edition of Wave Extra with myself, Jose Sosadia. Our thanks to Carson Meredith for the breakdown, looking into wrapping up Thursday night, alert day coverage for certain parts of your Friday evening and Saturday evening. Just to be wary of that. If you're enjoying your weekend plans, if you're heading out to the Super Regional game at Jim Patterson Stadium, expect what could be some delays if you're going to try and enjoy the game out there. And our Alena Noakes breaking down this latest motion by Steven Lawson's lawyers to try and dismiss that conviction on certain reasons or grounds from factors they saw play out during the trial, things like people in the audience wearing a certain color or an exchange between two of the witnesses. So we'll have to see how that appeal process plays out. So hope you stick around with us. Of course, if you haven't done so already, a reminder to download the Wave Now, the Wave Weather apps. They'll go get you the latest updates, breaking headlines, stories that matter to you right to your phone. We're going to have much more reporting and updates from our team on Wave News at 11. And you can always check in on our website, wave3.com. So appreciate you joining us. We will be back tomorrow. Thanks again.